Kelsey Price is the ultra runner that breaks men's records.
She recently won the London to Birmingham race and took gold in the Robin Hood 100 miler.
And on top of all of this, she suffered with Red S, a condition that results after a long-term calorie deficit that many runners have suffered with.
This is TLC Meet, where we meet incredible runners with amazing stories.
You do 24-hour track racing. How can you make something which on the face of it seems so mundane very exciting?
Oh, what a good question. Do you know what? I think it's conversations. I mean, the difference about being on a track compared to other types of races is that you're always with everyone. So for me, that is why it's so exciting, because you run with everyone at some point and you can walk and your friends are there, your family are there. So I think, yeah, there's just always a reason to keep going. You're never on your own.
Kelsey, do you?
Sometimes.
I guess that's a good point, because you've also done like races that aren't on a track as well, like really long races. Is a 24-hour track race then actually potentially less lonely than if you're out doing, say, 100 miler, because you are with people all the time?
Yeah, no, it most definitely is. I think the challenge is you're kind of always, there's pros and cons to that, because you're always on show. It's almost like you're in a fishbowl. You're like, everyone can see you at all times, so you just can't hide. If you're feeling like you just want to kind of go into yourself, everyone can see that. So there's a little bit of pros and cons.
Is there an argument that actually in a 24-hour track race, it's the spectators who should get a medal if they last the 24 hours compared to the athletes?
Yeah. Honestly though, the spectators, it is a team thing. The spectators are fantastic. You can see them camping on the side. It's
wow.
Yeah, it's
so
real.
What made you want to sign up to that first one?
I mean, I started only really doing trail races when I started doing ultramarathon running and Camino. So I'm part of a running group called Camino, and they were like, you just need to do a track. You just need to do a track. And I thought, oh my God, I'm never ever going to do a track. Can't think of anything worse. But yeah, you hang out with weird people and end up doing weird things. So that's essentially where that came from. And obviously running in London, it's harder to train for the trails. So it was kind of a natural progression really to track racing.
And tell us about that first one. How did it go? How did it feel?
Oh, goodness me. So it was on a really, really hot August day, and it got up to about 36 degrees. It was like a freak day. And I was this weirdo messaging the race organiser saying, is it going to be cancelled? Because we could see that the weather was going to be so bad. And they were like, absolutely not. Of course, it's not going to be cancelled. So yeah, it was hot. It was really, really hot. But actually, it went well. And I think it always left me with a bit of hunger for if it was like that at that temperature, let's go back and do one and hope it's not going to be as warm as that. So yeah, I went back for more, which was nice.
And I think you're massively underplaying how good you are
at
these events. So can you just talk us through the times that you can do and the distance rather than the time. It's 24 hours. What kind of distances are you covering in that 24-hour period?
So my most recent one, which was Crawley track 24-hour, I did 231.8 kilometres.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's getting close to my Strava yearly total.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing that.
Close to my life total.
And then what is the recovery like after doing something like that?
Oh, you know what? You end up being the immediate recovery, you're so wired, but you're so tired, but you can't sleep because you're in so much pain. So the immediate recovery is just weird. Like you feel like you're on a doolally land for a good couple of days because you can't sleep and you don't really have an appetite at the start. And then after that, I think different people approach it differently, but I really just like downtime after that to kind of not really do a lot. I think the recovery is really important, and it's nice to just have that time and kind of let yourself naturally feel like you want to start running again rather than follow a plan as such. So yeah, it takes a long time. I mean, I did that in April and I've not ran anywhere near that distance since. So I think one race at that kind of distance per year feels about right, because as you say, the recovery is just, need to honour that.
And even when you're then back running, I feel like with distances like that, it does take a while. Like we've spoken to another 24-hour racer, Sophie Power, and we spoke to her after she did the Length of Ireland challenge. And it's so interesting looking at, like, this is where watch data really comes in handy, because it might be like, okay, yes, you're back running, but similar actually when you come back from a marathon or any like hard race that you're doing for maybe the first time, or maybe you've done it before. It's those little things that actually you've put a huge strain through your body. So yes, okay, you can go out for a 1k, 2k, 5k run again, but the signs of what you put your body through might not come out for a few weeks. So you can't go like, okay, I'm back running, next 24 hour, let's go.
And that's absolutely it. Like your HRV might be really high for a really long time, or you might think you're okay, but then actually
heart rate variable.
Yeah,
heart rate variability.
That's
Sorry,
the
Rick doesn't like acronyms, or he likes to work them out.
Well, I thought I said HRT for a minute. I was thinking, have I got the wrong acronym?
But just to get to this point, Kelsey, I mean, it's been a dramatic climb. I mean, I can't even go into it. You know, the list is as long as my arm. I mentioned it in the lead-in, but you know, you've got the 100-mile record for the Robin Hood 100-miler. You won the London to Birmingham 145-miler. They're just some of your records. Many of your wins are outright wins, not just in the female category, but you know, overall category. How did you become this super athlete? I mean, where did it start? What was the first notch? Was it your dad?
That's so nice of you to say, thank you. But yeah, it was actually my dad. And I need to caveat this because he might sound like he was a pushy dad. He absolutely wasn't. But for my 18th birthday, he bought me a marathon. And I think that stemmed because he started running ultras. I think it was a bit of a midlife crisis thing. And I was so curious about it. I was like, this guy is like running really far and that's really cool, but it's really weird as well. So I think he could see I was so curious. We started running a bit together. And that was 10 years ago. So at that time, I mean, I was 18 and I didn't know a single person who was running marathons, let alone ultras. So he just booked me a marathon for my birthday and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to do it now. And
When you first found out, were you like, thanks?
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah. Or were you excited? Which marathon was it?
It was the Richmond Park Marathon.
Oh, quite right.
Cool. So that's kind of traily as well.
Yeah, kind of traily.
Great knowledge, Sarah.
Thank you.
Well done.
I mean, I got a necklace for my 18th, and I feel like
I was going to say what
if my dad had got me a marathon, I would be like,
what a great midlife crisis. I mean, Andy, who normally sits in your chair, he's probably approaching a midlife crisis, and he's just bought himself a bus. But a bus, yeah. But it's actually for practical reasons to fit all his children in it. So.
And how far away, how many months or weeks did your dad give you to train for this marathon?
Oh, you know what? It was so long ago. I can't even remember, but I do remember doing that classic thing on a marathon plan that you find online and you're like up in the distance every week. You're like, your Fridays are really miserable because I was at uni and I was like kind of going out, but then being hungover, having to do my long run. So I remember going on that classic marathon plan journey.
Nice. And then did you do the marathon with him?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And how was it?
Well, it was good, but he was vomiting halfway through. He had a stomach bug, so he was trailing behind. So I ended up carrying on and finishing.
You dropped him. Wow, that's not very nice.
This is taking a turn. This is taking a turn.
He nurtured me to get to the start line.
Was he just there throwing up on the side going, go on without me, you'll be fine?
He basically did what every single running jam video we've ever made has tells you not to do. If you're ill, don't go to the start line.
Right, but then you crossed the finish line. You've done that marathon. Then did your love of running continue, or has it kind of gone a bit up and down?
Yeah, so after that, I finished that with completely no expectations, no time in mind. And I finished it in 3 hours, 45 and 1 second. So I was 1 second off a good for age. Oh. And I didn't realise that what a good for age was until I finished it. So I think that in itself made me think, oh, maybe I could try and do it again. And then it just became a running thing. So every birthday after that, my dad, I think the next birthday, He booked me an ultra, and then by the time I was 23, it got up to 100 miles. It was a bit of a running joke, and now I pay my own races.
200-mile events now.
Oh my goodness!
Don't let him know.
No, I'm 30 soon, so I feel like that's
quite a good gift.
Gosh, yeah, I won't tell him about that.
Other gifts are available for Kelsey.
But also 3:45 at 18 years old
It's
for your
amazing.
first marathon is, I mean, I'm jealous. My marathon PB is 3:44, but so
That's
did,
brilliant.
at that point, were you like, oh, hang on a second, I'm quite good at this? And then did you start to get a little bit competitive, or was it still just kind of chipping away at your own goals?
Yeah, a bit of both really. I think I was more finding my feet with kind of what I liked. I love the trails. I really, really love trail running. But then I was living in Cardiff at uni, so I was running on the flat. But at the same time, it feels very different to how it feels now, where it feels like a lot of people run, a lot of friends run. So it was a bit more of it's a bit more just me in the running then.
Yeah, it's the COVID factor, wasn't it, that just blew up running?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is great, isn't it? There's just so much going on in the running space, and you can really align it with being social now. So yeah.
But when did you realise you were really, really good?
No, I'm not really good. Probably in COVID, like you said,
Yeah.
I was not really doing much else apart from running. And I think my joy for running then really allowed me to train a lot, because there was no competing things in life. So I think that was the race where I got a 100-mile time that I thought was, I actually would like to do this a bit more competitively. But then a few injuries followed that. So it didn't quite work out that way. So it's been a long journey. But yeah, it's
And
been
injuries is an interesting one. So you have battled Red S, which I think is a really important thing to talk about, because it's something that can affect all runners and it's not really spoken about that much. So could you tell us a little bit about the injuries which led to you getting that Red S diagnosis?
Yeah, of course. So just quickly explain what Red S is. So Red S, relative energy deficiency in sport. And it's basically, it's almost like your body goes on low power mode, like a phone. So if your phone's on low battery, because you're not plugging it in, you can only use certain apps on your phone. You might only be able to do an emergency call. You won't be able to use your camera. So Red S is essentially the similar thing, but for your body, where if you're not fueling enough to meet your body's energy demand, then a whole realm of things get kind of shut down so that your body can do the core thing that it needs to do, like breathe, your heart beating, etc. So
it's a calorie deficiency, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially that. And it can really happen by accident, which is what happened in my case. I thought, well, I'm a healthy weight and I eat pretty well. So I didn't even cross my mind.
Is that because it works with hormones as well? So more people are more susceptible to it than others?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it can happen to men and women, but I think for women, the first key sign is if your menstrual cycle is a little bit off, and because of the hormones, it impacts your menstrual cycle, but it also can impact things like mood, your immune system. But for me, the thing that really showed up was I ended up having a femoral stress fracture. And that was the first of 2 stress fractures, actually. And that really encouraged me to kind of take a look at myself and take a look at what I was doing. And I think I turned a bit of a blind eye for quite a long time, that my menstrual cycle was really long. I just thought, that's fine. But then it's kind of those key points that you think, okay, why has this happened? So,
and was it quite easy to kind of figure that out? Were people quite receptive to you going like, I don't think this is right? Because I'm guessing you were doing like quite a high mileage at the time as well. So were people just being like, oh, you're a runner, you're going to pick up injuries? Or was it quite quick to get to that diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends who you speak to. Like if you speak to a GP, my GP was like, well, just stop running. Like, you're a runner, what do you expect? Go on the pill. Like, they give you all different things. Whereas I think I was lucky that in myself, I thought, no, this isn't right. I'm going to do a lot of research on this. And it stemmed a lot of exploration really for myself in looking at the wider realms of female hormones running and what that means.
Is it also because medically runners are often more susceptible to red S because they are more susceptible to not taking on enough calories compared to what they're doing?
Yeah, exactly. Because it is so hard to know, right? Like it's hard to know how much you actually need to eat, and you might feel fine, and you might think you're fueling enough, but how do you really know? So obviously with runners, you're using a lot more energy, so it's quite easy, I think, to slip into those habits. And at the time, I was actually it was when intermittent fasting, it was booming. So I was doing that a little bit, which women respond really differently to men doing that. Yeah.
I just started a bit of intermittent fasting.
Did you?
I can feel Rick being like...
Sarah took the mick out of me for it. Mine, I think it's quite easy. I basically don't have breakfast. I have late lunch. Fast. Done. 16-8.
But then
so eat for
I
8 hours a day. Don't eat for 16 hours a day because your sleep counts.
True. But then I think it's so, I mean, I think this is a really important point because I think a lot of people as well who do maybe know a little bit about red S, a lot of the times when it gets brought up, it's, I was disordered eating, this led to this, and now I'm eating properly. Whereas I think it's actually really interesting that you were like, no, actually, I wasn't taking on the right stuff, but I thought I was, and everything that I was doing. Because I think that might impact a lot of people where this is my kind of bugbear that is becoming more and more with running, is that it's a hobby for so many people. Like it's a thing that we enjoy, and there are so many little things that you kind of have to make sure that your ducks are in a row in order to enjoy it, which it shouldn't be made to be feel like a chore, but it is kind of, you know, if you don't want to get injured, then you do need to get some strength and conditioning in, or if you do need to look after yourself, especially if your hobby becomes like 100 milers or ultra marathons, because that's, you know, that's a big toll on your body.
Absolutely. And I think that's where, I mean, there are a lot of people run whereas if you're an athlete, that's what you're doing. You've got a nutrition team, you've got the time for the recovery, you've got all the time for the strength. So you almost think, when you think of things like red S, that would only be in the athletes, but actually the general running population and your everyday runner, almost who doesn't have access to those resources, I think it's just so important to be aware and mindful of those things, because it's not just something that happens in athletes. In fact, it's probably more likely to be your non-athlete person who doesn't have the infrastructure around.
How did you beat it, Kelsey?
How did I beat it? So I went and had a load of blood tests, and I looked at what I was actually deficient in. I was deficient in iron, so I addressed that with iron tablets. Stopped the intermittent fasting and made sure I was really fueling my runs properly. I've actually been to a lab and looked at my blood glucose and what I actually need to fuel my runs, and just be really, really mindful. Like, I'm never hungry now, which is good. And yeah, I think cycle tracking has really, really helped with it, because I think as soon as anything is slightly off in terms of my cycle, I think, oh, maybe it's time to do something differently. And I think with these things, it's easy to slip into and out of it, but it's kind of that self knowledge and just knowing what you can do.
Oh, I love that one of the things that you've taken on from Red S is learning to use your menstrual cycle as your superpower. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Yeah,
so I mean, that's something that I absolutely love and find so fascinating. And this whole journey has almost led me to this point. And so throughout the menstrual cycle, there are obviously different peaks and troughs in different hormones, predominantly progesterone and estrogen. And estrogen is like your friend hormone, progesterone not so much. So at different points in my cycle, and also in the coaching that I do as well, I try to encourage athletes to train in this way, but you're more beneficial doing different types of exercise. So in a standard textbook 28-day cycle, when estrogen's rising, you're more likely to build muscle. So estrogen's anabolic, which means you're more likely to build muscle. You're more likely to essentially feel better, whereas progesterone is the less friendly hormone. And when progesterone's high, heart rate's higher, body temperature's higher, which obviously means your tolerance to hard exercise is less. So, and also there's various things with recovery when progesterone's higher. So I really try to train in a way where you can kind of work with those hormones, not against them. And I think just knowing those things is super helpful, and it kind of gives you a nice, when you've had a rubbish session, you can just blame the
Can you
hormones.
monitor those levels though? Can you actually monitor them, the levels?
You can't monitor them, well, unless you did like blood test, which wouldn't be that accessible to doing that every day. But from when the first day of your period is and how long your menstrual cycle is, you vaguely know when things are as they are. And
train accordingly.
Yeah, and train accordingly. So when you're ovulating, testosterone's high. Testosterone is a great time to race because you've essentially got like men's confidence, which is really good. Yeah.
Is that when, so if you're like looking at plotting in races now or like kind of choosing which ones to do, are you quite often calendar out with with your cycle? When's my testosterone high?
Yeah.
I wish I could do that. It doesn't work. This is where it all falls down. When it comes to races, you've obviously just got no control and you have to just go with it.
Yeah. But I do think it's a really good point. Like I've seen lots of people like on marathon day, it's so cruel that like you can't change the day of a marathon. No. Like with shorter races, you can probably go, okay, actually, this is going to be on day one of my period, or this is going to be on a really bad day. I might just treat this as a hard 5K and then book another one for a few days later. But how do you manage that? Like knowing what you know about the whole cycle, if you do have a 100-miler or a 24-hour track race at one of the kind of less good points to go hard, how do you manage that now with racing and fueling and kind of tackling it?
Oh, I mean, it's hard because you have to just get on with it ultimately. If you've trained hard for a race and it falls on a day where your hormones aren't fully supportive of what you'd want it to be on that day, you do just really have to get on with it. But I think if it's when you're premenstrual, you know your body rate, your body temperature is going to be higher. There are things you can do like wear ice on your ice on your elbows is always a really good one. And just
how does that work?
You can get things where you wrap it around your arm and you put a bit of ice in it, and it just keeps your whole
body
temperature.
That like a pressure point?
Yeah.
Is it like what we saw at the Olympics when people were wearing the ice headbands?
Yeah, exactly like that, to just keep yourself cool.
Honestly, I mean, I'd have to just strap it to my whole body because it just wouldn't work.
Just an ice suit.
Do you get really hot?
Really, really hot.
Yeah.
Even like in the studio. That's because these two normally work me up so much. But
Rick's known for his little pink face.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've done your 24-hour track race for this year, but we're obviously close to the end of the year now. So what are 2025 goals, and how do you, because I feel like there'll be a lot of people listening to this who are perhaps dipping their toe into the ultra space.
Well, Sarah,
Sorry, from you.
I don't want to interrupt. I've been told off for this.
Sorry, no, go on. Please do. Anytime. I love it when you interrupt me.
Dipping their toe in.
Yeah.
The ultra space, and then we are with the don of ultras here, but still only 2% of regular runners do ultras.
Really? Little?
It's very difficult to get these figures. But if you combine all the recent surveys,
that's Rick code for don't believe this figure.
The suggestion is
that's Rick code for he just stepped outside the studio before this, stopped 5 people on the street and asked whether any of them were running ultra.
It's a tiny, tiny proportion.
Yeah.
So I'm always very wary of us talking too much about ultras on the programme because I think it doesn't affect. It's amazing to look up to these people like Kelsey, but not many of us do. I mean, I'm never going to do an ultra in a million years.
He will.
In a million years.
Okay, well, this is great. We've got the rest of this podcast to persuade Rick to choose when to do an ultra.
Literally, it was hard enough to persuade me to do a half.
Good question. What will it take?
What would it take?
Yeah.
it would.
This is when it's like you can't afford it.
There's
not enough money in the world that you can pay me.
Maybe for some version of Gavi to sponsor this podcast.
That's Rick's favourite wine.
Yes. Sorry, Kelsey, this is about
I thought
you.
you meant Gaviscon.
Yeah,
He gets really bad heartburn, so that just really helps him through the longer races.
Yeah. I mean, it will end up being Gaviscon. Yeah.
Your 2025 plans then, how do you choose? I guess for anyone, lots of people run marathons. Are you happy with that percentage?
Yeah, still
where you
quite
can,
small, but yeah.
where you can't just, every week, unlike a park run or a 5K where you can just go out every week and do it. How do you choose what to do, and what are you looking to do in 2025?
Like we were talking about before with the recovery, and not wanting really for the purpose of recovery to do too many. But at the moment, as of right now, I've got a qualifier to run at the World Championships in Albi. So run for GB in October. They don't officially announce the team until April. So there's a little bit of time with the qualifying window for people to potentially run further. So nothing is confirmed now, but if it is a green light in April, then next year will really all be tailored around that. So we'll be going to France and running again on a track for 24 hours. And I'm also doing, so you probably won't have heard of it, the Anglo-Celtic Plate 100K.
No, what does that involve?
I heard the 100K bit.
Yeah, that's it really. Just 100K.
And where does that go between?
So they move it moves every year between England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. But this year it's in Leicester. So it's another looped event. And I haven't actually looked at how long the loops are, so I probably should know that, but I don't know that. Yeah, and I'm hoping to do a bit more trail running as well. Like I've found with trying to get the GB qualifier earlier this year, I've really focused on the roadie track stuff. But yeah, I would love to do a few more traily fun runs.
Are you good at taking your own advice? Because I believe as a coach, you tell your athletes that you're there for accountability, but also to tell you to have a day off. Do you take your own advice?
What, by having a day off?
Yeah.
I love a day off. Yeah. I absolutely love a day off. I love recovery. Like I just love, obviously after so many days off, you're itching to go back again. Yeah. But I would say, I think injury has actually moved my mindset with that in terms of how important it is. But I do think as well, I'm coached by Camino, who are a coaching company, and it has helped getting recovery days in the plan. I think it's always good to be reminded that that's as important as the training itself.
What are your favourite things to do on a recovery day?
My favourite things to do on a recovery day.
Is it basically about doing as little as possible, and you're very good at that?
Yeah, but it never ends up being doing as little as possible. It's probably, between me and my partner, our family is scattered everywhere. So it probably ends up being on a train or in a car. So yeah, a recovery
Are you good,
day.
Sarah?
At doing a recovery day?
Doing nothing?
I'm not great at doing nothing, no.
No, I don't think so.
Not very good
at
all.
I'm useless at doing
I'm the
nothing.
type of person that's like, a recovery day, I could go for a walk.
Yeah.
A recovery day, I could go swimming.
I'll climb a mountain.
I could climb a mountain. Yeah.
End up cleaning the house
District.
instead or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, which
Clean the
sometimes
house.
is just as tiring. And then I'll be like, why does my arm hurt so much? Oh yeah, I got into a really awkward position cleaning out a cupboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Rick is straight in a hot tub. He loves a recovery day.
Yeah, love a recovery day. Yeah. I just find it hard to sit still at any point. So anytime.
Unless you're in a hot tub.
Unless I'm in a hot tub, so anytime I'm sitting still. That was fascinating.
Yeah, thank you so much. And very, very best of luck for hopefully when you get the green light to go to the qualifier next year.
Yeah, Team GB.
Thank you so much.
Exciting.
It is exciting. It's really exciting. Yeah, just need to up my mileage now and start training as if it's going to happen, manifest it.
Nice. We'll be
Kelsey.
supporting you from the side. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's been great to speak to you both.